Ethan Miller walked into his dorm room after a long day of classes, tossing his backpack onto the bed with a sigh. Northwestern University was famous for its astrophysics program, which was why he had chosen it. What he hadn't expected was to become part of the first ever human-alien exchange program. The university had sent out the email just 3 weeks ago. Selected students will have the privilege of rooming with visitors from Xerax as part of our groundbreaking interspecies academic exchange. Ethan had barely paid attention to it, assuming he wouldn't be chosen. Then came the follow-up message with his name on the list. "Just my luck," he muttered, looking around his hastily cleaned room. His new roommate was arriving today. The standard-issue dorm consisted of 2 beds, 2 desks, and barely enough space to turn around. Ethan had pushed all his astronomy posters to one side of the room, leaving the other blank for the Xeraxian student. He'd read somewhere that Xeraxians valued personal space. A knock on the door made him jump. "Come in," he called, quickly smoothing down his rumpled shirt. The door swung open slowly. Standing in the hallway was a figure unlike any Ethan had seen outside of news videos. The Xeraxian was tall and lean, with blue-tinted skin that seemed to shimmer under the fluorescent lights. 2 small ridges ran from its forehead to the back of its elongated head. Its 4-fingered hands gripped a strange curved suitcase. "Hello," the alien said, its voice surprisingly normal despite coming from a mouth with no visible lips. "I am Krell. I believe I am assigned to this living space." Ethan nodded, trying not to stare. "Yeah, that's right. I'm Ethan. Nice to meet you." Krell took 1 step into the room, then froze completely. Its large, almond-shaped eyes widened, and the pupils expanded until they were almost completely black. The suitcase slipped from its fingers and hit the floor with a thud. "Is something wrong?" Ethan asked, looking around for whatever had shocked his new roommate. Krell remained motionless, only its chest moving with rapid breaths. Its gaze was fixed on Ethan's desk. "Are you okay?" Ethan moved closer, genuinely concerned. "That object," Krell finally whispered, pointing a trembling finger at Ethan's desk. "Where did you get it?" Ethan turned to look. There wasn't much on his desk, just some textbooks, a lamp, his laptop, and a small rock he used as a paperweight. "Which object?" "The stone. The blue stone." Krell's voice had dropped to a reverent whisper. "This." Ethan picked up the ordinary-looking paperweight. It was just a smooth blue stone his grandfather had given him years ago. "It's nothing special. Just a rock from back home." Krell finally stepped fully into the room, the door closing behind him. His eyes never left the stone. "That is not just a rock," he said solemnly. "On my world, we would call that a Kalaxar. It is sacred." Ethan looked at the stone with new eyes. It seemed perfectly ordinary to him, just a smooth, polished blue stone with a few darker flecks. "Sacred? This exact stone?" Krell shook his head slowly, finally recovering enough to move further into the room. "Not that exact stone, but stones of that type. They are extremely rare, even on Xerax. To find one here, on Earth." He looked at Ethan with an expression that seemed like awe. "This is either an incredible coincidence or something much more significant." Ethan turned the stone over in his hand. "My grandfather gave it to me. Said it was special." "Your grandfather was right," Krell said. "And this changes everything about my time here." Professor Laura Bennett sat at her desk, looking at the 2 students in front of her. One human, one alien, both clearly uncomfortable. "So let me understand this," she said, adjusting her glasses. "The stone that Ethan has been using as a paperweight for years is somehow important to Xeraxian culture." Krell nodded, his blue skin catching the light as he moved. "It is not just important, Professor. It is sacred. We call it a Kalaxar." The Cultural Exchange Office was small but cozy. Professor Bennett had been chosen to head the program due to her background in cynoanthropology and her calm demeanor. This was exactly the kind of situation she had been prepared for, though she hadn't expected it to happen on day 1. "Tell me more about this Kalaxar," she said. "In our history," Krell explained. These stones are said to fall from the sky during the alignment of 3 moons. They are believed to contain wisdom from our ancestors. He pointed to the blue rock sitting on her desk. The composition is unmistakable. The blue coloring, the dark flecks, the density. Ethan shrugged. My grandfather gave it to me when I was 10. Said it was a good luck charm. Professor Bennett picked up the stone, examining it. Where did your grandfather get it? I don't know. He traveled a lot before he settled down. Said he found it somewhere special, but never told me where exactly. Outside the office, other students walked past. Through the window, Ethan could see a group of Xeraxians standing together, occasionally glancing toward the building. News traveled fast, especially when it involved the exchange students. This could explain some things, Professor Bennett said thoughtfully. When the Xeraxian delegation first arrived on Earth 2 years ago, they seemed to know more about us than we had shared. Some people thought they had been watching us for decades. Krell shifted in his seat. I am not authorized to speak on such matters. But the stone suggests prior contact, doesn't it? She pressed. Perhaps, Krell admitted. Our records speak of visitations to other worlds, including one with oceans and a single moon. Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. Had his grandfather somehow met Xeraxians before the official first contact? Is that why you all chose Northwestern for the exchange program? Ethan asked suddenly. Because it's close to where my grandfather lived. Krell blinked, an expression Ethan now recognized as surprise. I do not know the criteria for selection. I only know I was chosen for my studies in comparative biological systems. Professor Bennett leaned forward. Ethan, where did your grandfather live? About 20 miles from here. He had a cabin near the lake. She made a note. I think we need to keep this stone safe for now. It could be historically significant to both our species. As they left the office, Ethan noticed more stares from passing students. Word had spread. A human girl named Olivia, from his physics class, approached them. Is it true? She asked excitedly. You have some kind of alien artifact. Before Ethan could answer, 3 more Xeraxian students appeared, their attention focused entirely on him. We wish to see the Kalaxar, one of them said, their voice deeper than Krell's. Krell stepped slightly in front of Ethan. The stone is being examined. It is not for public viewing. The tension in the hallway thickened. Ethan realized that his ordinary life had just become extraordinarily complicated. In just one day, he had gone from anonymous college student to the center of an interspecies incident. I think, Ethan said carefully, that we should go back to our room and talk about this. Krell nodded. Yes, there is much you need to understand about what you possess. As they walked away, Ethan felt the weight of dozens of eyes on his back, both human and alien. The small blue stone had suddenly turned his world upside down. The dorm room felt smaller with 2 people sitting cross-legged on the floor, staring at a blue stone placed between them. Outside, rain pattered against the window, creating a strange, tense atmosphere. Okay, Ethan said, tell me everything about this stone. Krell's 4-fingered hands hovered over the Kalaxar without touching it. In our culture, these stones are conduits of knowledge. They appear only during rare cosmic events. The last recorded finding was 300 Earth years ago. Ethan studied his alien roommate's face, trying to read the unfamiliar expressions. But it's just a stone. How can it contain knowledge? The dark flecks you see are not minerals, Krell explained, pointing. They are microscopic crystalline structures capable of storing information, similar to your data chips, but formed naturally. A knock on the door interrupted them. Ethan opened it to find Olivia from his physics class standing there, looking nervous but determined. Sorry to bother you, she said, but there are people looking for you. Important-looking people. Some are wearing suits, and some are definitely not human. Ethan thanked her and closed the door, turning to Krell with alarm. Government agents. Already? Not surprising, Krell replied. The Kalaxar would be considered a matter of interplanetary security. He hesitated, then added, "Ethan, I need to show you something." Krell reached into his curved suitcase and retrieved what looked like a silver pen. When he clicked it, a holographic display appeared above the stone, showing swirling patterns and symbols. "The Kalaxar is active," Krell whispered. "It contains data that is still accessible." Ethan stared at the dancing symbols. "Can you read it?" "Some of it. It appears to be coordinates and historical records." Krell's voice became hushed. "This stone was deliberately left on Earth. It wasn't a random occurrence." Another knock, harder this time. A deep voice called through the door. "Mr. Miller, this is Agent Carson with the Bureau of Extraterrestrial Affairs. We need to speak with you immediately." Ethan and Krell exchanged alarmed looks. "We should not surrender the Kalaxar," Krell said urgently. "Not until we understand its purpose." Making a split-second decision, Ethan grabbed the stone and shoved it into his pocket. He opened the window, thankful they were only on the second floor. "You want to jump?" Krell asked, eyes widening. "There's a ledge that leads to the fire escape," Ethan explained. "It's that or hand over your sacred stone to people we don't know." The knocking turned to pounding. Krell nodded, and they climbed out onto the ledge just as the door burst open. Rain soaked them as they maneuvered along the narrow ledge to the metal fire escape. Ethan could hear shouting from his room. Looking down, he saw more figures moving below, some with the distinctive blue skin of Xeraxians. "They're surrounding the building," Ethan whispered. "Why is this stone so important that everyone's after it?" Krell's expression turned grave. "Because it proves that Xeraxians visited Earth centuries ago, which violates the Treaty of First Contact. And because whoever controls the knowledge inside it might control the future of relations between our worlds." They reached the bottom of the fire escape and ducked behind a dumpster. The campus grounds, normally peaceful, now seemed filled with potential enemies. "We need help," Ethan said. "Someone who won't immediately turn us in." Krell nodded. "Professor Bennett." She seemed genuinely interested in cultural preservation, not political advantage. The stone in Ethan's pocket felt heavier than its actual weight. From something as simple as a paperweight, it had transformed into an object that could change history and potentially destroy the fragile peace between two worlds. "Her office is across campus," Ethan said, peering around the dumpster at the figures moving through the rain. "We'll have to be careful." "On my world," Krell said quietly, "there is a saying, 'Knowledge seeks worthy keepers.' The Kalaxar chose you, Ethan Miller. Now we must discover why." The rain intensified as Ethan and Krell darted between buildings, avoiding the searching figures that seemed to be everywhere. The campus had transformed from a place of learning into a maze of dangers in just a few hours. "Duck," Ethan whispered, pulling Krell behind a large oak tree as two men in dark suits walked past, speaking into earpieces. "They are very determined," Krell observed, his blue skin appearing almost purple in the dim evening light. "Which makes me wonder what they know that we don't," Ethan replied. They made it to the science building without being spotted. Professor Bennett's office was on the third floor, and fortunately, the building was mostly empty this late in the evening. As they climbed the stairs, Ethan felt the stone growing warm in his pocket. "Krell," he whispered, pulling out the Kalaxar. "It's heating up." The blue stone now glowed faintly, the dark flecks seeming to move within it. Krell stared at it with a mixture of awe and concern. "It's activating," he said. "The knowledge is becoming accessible." Before Ethan could respond, footsteps echoed in the stairwell below them. They rushed up the remaining stairs and down the hallway to Professor Bennett's office. The door was locked. "She's not here," Ethan said, panic rising in his voice. "Allow me," Krell said, producing a small device from his pocket. He pressed it against the lock, and the door clicked open. Standard dormitory tool on Xerax, for when privacy chips malfunction. They slipped inside the dark office and closed the door behind them. Ethan placed the now brightly glowing stone on the desk. "Now what?" he asked. Before Krell could answer, the stone pulsed with light, and a holographic display erupted from it, filling the room with swirling stars and unfamiliar symbols. Then, slowly, the symbols began to transform into English letters. "It's adapting to our language," Krell whispered in amazement. A message formed in the air. "Recuviori protocolo initiated. Hede. Awaiting authorized access." "What does that mean?" Ethan asked. The door opened suddenly, making them both jump. Professor Bennett stood there, eyes wide at the spectacle in her office. "I thought I might find you here," she said, closing the door quickly. "The entire campus is looking for you too and that stone." She approached the desk carefully, studying the holographic display. "This is incredible. It's some kind of data storage device, isn't it?" Krell nodded. "It requires authorization to access fully. It was clearly left for a purpose." Professor Bennett looked thoughtful. "Ethan, you said your grandfather gave you this stone. Did he ever say anything specific about it? Any words or phrases that seemed strange?" Ethan tried to remember. "He just said it was special and would guide me when the time was right. He called it the Starkeeper's Trust." The moment he said those words, the stone pulsed brightly, and the message changed. "Voice PTERN, Rectogenized, Genetic Link Co-Environment. Access Granted." The three of them watched in stunned silence as the holographic display expanded, showing what appeared to be a map of stars, then zooming in on two planets, Earth and what Krell identified as Xerax. "Your grandfather," Krell said slowly, "must have been involved with my people long before official first contact." A new message appeared. "Historical Record HCTSSIBL. Pilave Vasiki Beginning." The office filled with a three-dimensional image of a man who looked remarkably like an older version of Ethan, standing beside a Xeraxian. They appeared to be inside some kind of ship. "My name is Joseph Miller," the man said. "If you're seeing this, it means my grandson has found the Kalaxar and spoken the access phrase. What I'm about to reveal will change everything you think you know about human-Xeraxian relations." The recording paused as a loud banging came from the door. "Professor Bennett, this is Agent Carson. Open up immediately." The three looked at each other in alarm as the stone continued to glow between them, its secrets only beginning to unfold. Professor Bennett moved quickly, grabbing the glowing Kalaxar from the desk and shoving it into a drawer. The holographic display vanished instantly, plunging the office into darkness. "Hide," she whispered, pointing to a supply closet in the corner. Ethan and Krell squeezed inside just as Professor Bennett opened the door to face Agent Carson. "I'm working late, Agent. What's this about?" Her voice sounded perfectly calm. From inside the closet, Ethan could see through a thin crack between the door and frame. Agent Carson was tall and stern-looking, with two more agents behind him. A Xeraxian in formal attire stood to the side, watching everything carefully. "We're looking for a student of yours, Ethan Miller, and his Xeraxian roommate," Carson said. "They've taken possession of an item of extreme importance to interstellar security." "I haven't seen them since our meeting earlier today," Bennett replied evenly. The Xeraxian stepped forward. "The energy signature of a Kalaxar was detected in this building moments ago." Ethan felt Krell tense beside him. In the cramped closet, they could barely breathe without making noise. "I have various energy-emitting research tools," Bennett said, gesturing to her equipment. "Perhaps your sensors picked up one of those." After a tense inspection of the office, the agents reluctantly left, promising to return with a proper search warrant. Once they were gone, Bennett locked the door and retrieved the stone. "We don't have much time," she said. "They'll be back, and with more authority." She placed the Kalaxar on the desk, and Ethan spoke the activation phrase again. The recording of his grandfather resumed. "In 1978, I was hiking in the woods near Lake Michigan when I witnessed a Xeraxian scout ship crash," Joseph Miller explained. "The pilot was injured but alive. Instead of reporting it, I helped hide the ship and heal the pilot. The hologram showed young Joseph and the Zeraxian working together to conceal a small spacecraft. His name was Varric, Joseph continued. We became friends during the 6 months it took to repair his ship. He explained that his people had been observing Earth for centuries, but were forbidden from making contact until we reached a certain technological threshold. Krell stepped closer to the hologram, his eyes wide. Varric was my great-uncle, he whispered. He disappeared on a mission and returned months later, but never explained what happened. This is part of my family history. The recording continued. Before Varric left, he gave me this Klaxar. It contains the true history of human-Zeraxian interactions going back thousands of years. Both governments have agreed to hide this history for political reasons. Maps appeared showing ancient landing sites across Earth, alongside images of early humans interacting with Zeraxians. The most important revelation, Joseph said, his face growing serious, is that humans and Zeraxians share a common ancestor, a species that seeded both our worlds 3 million years ago. The hologram displayed DNA structures that gradually merged into a single pattern. The land where Northwestern University now stands was once an ancient meeting place, Joseph explained. The dormitory where my grandson will one day live sits directly above a buried Zeraxian artifact, a beacon meant to be activated when both species were ready for the truth. Professor Bennett gasped. That explains why they chose this university for the exchange program. The recording flickered. If you're watching this, it means both species are finally reconnecting. The governments know the truth but fear what complete disclosure might do to religious and social structures on both worlds. The Klaxar contains proof that we are not just allies, but family. As the message ended, the stone pulsed with energy, sending a beam of light straight down through the floor. It's activating the beacon, Krell said in awe. The building began to vibrate slightly, and outside, alarms started to sound. What have we done? Ethan whispered. Professor Bennett looked at them, both with determination. We've started something that can't be stopped. The truth is coming out, whether they want it to or not. The campus emergency system blared as the ground beneath the science building continued to tremble. Through the window, Ethan could see people evacuating nearby buildings while security personnel ran toward their location. We need to get to the dormitory, Krell said urgently. If your grandfather is correct, the beacon beneath it is responding to the Klaxar. Professor Bennett grabbed her bag. There's a maintenance tunnel that connects to the dorm basements. We can avoid being seen. As they hurried down the emergency stairwell, Ethan clutched the stone, which was now pulsing with a steady blue light. What happens when the beacon fully activates? Krell's expression was difficult to read. In our legends, the beacons were placed by our ancestors to reveal themselves when both species were ready. No one knows exactly what will happen. At the bottom of the stairs, they found the maintenance door locked. Bennett used her faculty key card, but the reader flashed red. They've already locked down the building, she said. A voice called from above. Professor Bennett, stop right there. Looking up, they saw Agent Carson and several others descending rapidly. Plan B, Bennett said, pushing open the fire exit. The moment they stepped outside, they were caught in bright spotlight beams. Helicopters hovered overhead, and a line of government vehicles blocked the path to the dormitories. Both human and Zeraxian officials stood waiting. Hand over the artifact, Mr. Miller, a stern voice announced through a megaphone. Krell stepped slightly in front of Ethan. The Klaxar has chosen him. By our laws, you have no right to interfere. A distinguished-looking Zeraxian in elaborate robes approached. I am Ambassador Drell. The activation of ancient technology on a Level 3 development planet violates 17 interstellar treaties. Surrender the device immediately. The ground shook more violently, and in the distance, a blue light shot up from the area of Ethan's dormitory. It's too late, Professor Bennett said. The beacon is already responding. Ambassador Drell's composure faltered. That's impossible without the primary activation key. Ethan held up the stone. You mean this? It seems my grandfather left it with me for exactly this moment. The ambassador's eyes widened. Joseph Miller. We should have known. He turned to Agent Carson. Your agency assured us all traces of the 1978 incident were contained. Carson looked uncomfortable. We thought they were. Suddenly, Olivia appeared, pushing through the security line. Ethan, the dorm is glowing and no one can get in. What's happening? Before anyone could stop her, she ran to join them, slipping past the distracted agents. The governments of both worlds have been lying, Ethan told her. Humans and Xeraxians have a shared history they've been hiding from us. The Kalaxar pulsed in Ethan's hand, and the beam from the dormitory intensified, creating a visible connection with the stone. Information began flowing between them, visible as streams of light and symbols. The beacon is downloading its data to the Kalaxar, Krell explained, watching in awe. Ambassador Drell stepped forward. You don't understand the consequences of what you're doing. The truth was hidden for good reason. What reason is worth lying to two entire species? Professor Bennett demanded. Stability, Carson answered. Revealing that we share ancestors with an alien species would upend religious doctrines, scientific understanding, and social orders on both worlds. The connection between the stone and the beacon suddenly strengthened, enveloping them all in a sphere of blue light. Within this sphere, images began to form, ancient star maps, DNA sequences, and faces of beings that seemed both human and Xeraxian, yet neither. The progenitors, Krell whispered. Our common ancestors. Ambassador Drell watched helplessly as the light expanded, now covering the entire campus. You've opened Pandora's box, he said quietly. Ethan looked at the worried faces of the officials, and then at the awestruck expressions of students gathering at the edges of the light. Maybe it's time for the truth, he said firmly, holding the Kalaxar higher. The light surged once more, and everyone within it suddenly heard a voice, ancient yet clear, speaking directly into their minds. Children of two worlds, the time of reunion has come. The blue light expanded beyond the campus, reaching into the sky like a beacon. News helicopters circled above, broadcasting the phenomenon worldwide. On the ground, Ethan stood at the center of it all, the Kalaxar floating above his palm. Children of two worlds, the ancient voice continued, divided by time and space, united by common origin. We are the progenitors who seeded life on both Earth and Xerax, when our own civilization faced extinction. The light formed into holographic images, showing a highly advanced species that had features of both humans and Xeraxians, the height and build of humans, but with the blue-tinted skin and elongated heads of Xeraxians. Ambassador Drell had fallen to his knees, his composure completely abandoned. The Ancient Ones, he whispered, they're real. Agent Carson spoke urgently into his communication device. The President needs to see this. Everyone needs to see this. The voice from the beacon continued. Our civilization was destroyed by a cosmic event, but we preserved our legacy through you. We left these beacons to activate when both species rediscovered each other and were ready for the truth. Professor Bennett was recording everything on her phone. This rewrites all of human history, she said, her voice filled with wonder. The progenitor voice explained how they had guided early development on both planets, leaving behind similar myths and legends about visitors from the stars. They revealed that the periodic visits throughout history were automated monitoring systems checking on their children's progress. The final gift awaits beneath the earth, the voice announced. Knowledge that belongs to both worlds equally. The ground before them split open, revealing a staircase leading down into a chamber beneath the dormitory. The floating Kalaxar moved toward the opening, pulling Ethan along with it. I need to follow it, he said, looking at Krell. We go together, Krell replied without hesitation. Despite protests from both human and Xeraxian officials, Ethan and Krell descended the staircase. Professor Bennett, Olivia, Ambassador Drell, and Agent Carson followed close behind. The chamber below was vast, and filled with technology that hummed to life as they entered. At the center stood a crystal pillar where the Kallaxars settled into a perfect fitting. "Final sequence activated," announced the voice. "Genetic verification required." Instinctively, Ethan placed his hand on one panel while Krell placed his on another. The chamber scanned them both, confirming their DNA. Descendants recognized. Library access granted. The walls of the chamber transformed into screens showing technological blueprints, scientific formulas, and historical records spanning millions of years. "This is the combined knowledge of the progenitors," Ambassador Drell said in awe. "Clean energy systems, medical advancements, space travel technology beyond what even Xeraxians possess." Agent Carson stared at the displays. "This changes the balance of power throughout the known universe." "No," Ethan said firmly. "This belongs to everyone. Both worlds, equally. That's what they intended." The progenitor voice spoke one final time. "The children of two worlds must now decide their future together. The division was necessary for your independent development. The reunion is necessary for your survival. Together, you will reach the stars in ways neither could alone." 3 days later, Ethan sat in his dorm room, which now had a security detail outside. The window offered a view of the massive joint research facility being constructed around the progenitor chamber. Scientists from Earth and Xerax worked side by side, studying the ancient knowledge. Krell entered, carrying 2 cups of coffee. "The new treaty was signed this morning," he said. "The United Earth-Xerax Cooperation Agreement. Your name and mine are mentioned in the preamble." Ethan smiled, taking the coffee. "All because you walked into my room and saw a paperweight." "The stone chose well," Krell replied. "Your grandfather would be proud." Outside, human and Xeraxian students walked together across campus, no longer separated by species, but united by the revelation of their shared heritage. News reports showed similar scenes around the world as Xeraxian delegations arrived in major cities, welcomed now as long-lost family rather than alien visitors. As night fell, Ethan and Krell looked up at the stars visible through their window. "Which one will we visit first?" Ethan asked. Krell pointed to a distant point of light. "That one has planets with descendants from other progenitor seeding missions, more cousins waiting to meet us." "Then that's where we'll go," Ethan said. "Together."